Love is just four letters, but it's more of a feeling that we tend to have. And the moment we start building memories about everything, right? And we are literally like thumped upon us about what love is. And these movies and people and everybody just put those ideas in there about what love is. And those ideas become our definition of love and our experience of love. And we start to look for those. But that is not love. Even in the vaguest sense, if two people are just loving based on each other's images, that's really very superficial and that can't be called love. Love is something that's very deep. Love is something that Mother Earth has for all of us on it. It's that unsaid, unfathomable feeling that we humans have, but in a very deeper sense it can't even be named, because this language is something that we created, and there's no language of Earth, there's no language of the universe. It's just there. And when we talk about love, it really starts with our parents. We love them first because there tends to be a dependency, because they have brought us up, they have taken care of us for so many years, for decades. And most of the parents now have projected their own beliefs onto us about what love is. And when that happens, our parents' definition and meaning of love becomes our own definition of love. Our experiences may be different, but it is based on what our parents have told us about what love is and what they have shown us what love is between them. It's very difficult to pinpoint where the problem lies, but in a deeper sense, it lies in the fact that we love through memories. We think about memories and we miss them. We miss people, we miss those memories we had with them, and we feel sad about it, that we don't have that anymore, we don't have those people anymore. And when we have them, that love, which initially it's very in depth, it's very free-flowing initially when two people get into a relationship, for example, that love fades away, because then they know each other too much, and that knowing itself is memories. So fundamentally we have not understood how the mind functions, and that's why we never really gone into the depths of what love is, how to really love deeply. And this is one aspect which I evolved with over time, about going about what love is and going about how to be in relationships in adulthood, and also about being in relationship with my parents and with my siblings and with friends. And each of those different kind of relationship has love in it. But we tend to see each of them as very different based on how the person is. Obviously we need to play different roles in each of those areas, but essentially at a deeper sense love remains the same. That love that we want to give and we want to receive, it's a need. It's a need because it's one of those unfulfilled needs of our childhood, and many of our parents have been not that good when it comes to fulfilling our childhood needs, because they themselves could not fulfill their childhood needs, and they have grown with that kind of understanding about what love is. And the craving for love is so much now because that remains mostly unfulfilled even when two people are together. You can see couples who are together for a long time because they have kids, but they really don't have love in between them. Love even in the superficial sense, forget about the deep sense. So the love that I want to talk about here is something that's very unconditional, and I have lived that way for the majority of my life, where I have offered unconditional love, but there haven't really been anybody who were capable enough to receive that. I say this in the sense of everybody has conditions over what love is, and the closest of being unconditional were my parents. Those are the only living example that I can take of, because they would love, and I'm sure most of the parents, if they're genuine about things and their children and about giving, are unconditional to a certain extent, where they offer themselves, literally pour themselves for their kids. Especially I've seen this in India, where even my parents have been there throughout, whenever I needed them, and whenever I needed emotional support, financial support. Just being there as a parent means a lot to a person, to a child. And even though my parents could not fulfill a lot of those needs in my childhood, but when it comes to that unconditional love, they were the prime example for me. And I could say the majority of that has been my mother, and she has been the one who has instilled that unconditional love in me, because she has given that to us, all of us. Even though we may not have been in that space to understand that in different stages of our lives, in my 30s at least, I have realized that the love that she offered has been totally unconditional. She may not be educated, she may not know a lot of things, she may not know English, but she does know what love is. And she doesn't even know love through words. We don't even say I love you or any of those kind of expressions here. It's in the giving. That's where the love is. And that's one thing that's really deeply impacted me as a person, because of my mother. And my father, because he has been there responsibly for most of the time. So your definition of love could be different based on who your parents were, how they ended up loving you, and also the meaning that you took out of your parents and out of love. It depends on many factors. Most of them ends up being conditional. Conditional because it becomes very transactionary kind of relationship and a transactionary love, and that's really not a love that's unconditional. Nowadays, I've even heard people talk about that unconditional love is a myth. It's non-existent. It has become non-existent because people don't live consciously. It seems non-existing because people don't go deep into life to see that it is very much possible to live deeply and love unconditionally. And this I'm saying not just in a romantic relationship, it's also possible in any kind of relationship, be it friendship, be it at work with people, be it with siblings. It's very much possible. Even though you may have your own idiosyncrasies with a lot of people, and you may not have a choice of not living with them. You're bound to live with certain people. You can't go away from certain people. and even though you may not live with them, but they stay with you. So that relationship that you have with love is very important for yourself first. Not how you go about it with other people, but also about how you have the relationship with love. This is very essential, because how you end up interpreting love or making meaning out of love, that has an impact on how you end up loving other people, treating other people. So I have been a constant prime example of unconditional because I have unconditionally given in all the relationships that I have been. And it's very rare that I see now for people to do that, because they are always expecting something in return. And the world is filled with narcissists. There's another course that I'm going to do about narcissism, but this world is filled with narcissists, and I'm not targeting them, but these are the people who do not know what love is. They have no idea, they have no clue what love is. And these are the people who would even make those people who believe in love not believe in love. And these are the people who believe in and live with conditional love. Their childhood traumas have made them move so much away from pure love that they don't even want to see in that direction that it is possible. And when people who actually give, and with a narcissist it's always about people who are giving, because narcissists take from the giver, and it's always the people who give that ends up attracting narcissist people, and it's a very vicious cycle. I have been in 2 narcissist relationships, so I've learned a lot, and it's only by experience that you get to know what kind of people you want to be with, what kind of people you truly want to love, and what kind of people you really want to stay away from. Because if you don't have those experiences, and nobody gets it right the first time, people who say that, I really don't believe that. Either they are very, very lucky, or they are just accepted it so deeply that they don't even want to question that. So the givers and the takers, just look at these 2 words, right? Give and take. That's a transactional relationship. So there's no unconditional love there. That's even when I was not conscious, even though I was on my spiritual journey, this just takes a toll, even with people in spiritual journey, because it's very hard to differentiate people who are using you for love. Because if you are a giver, you feel that you're giving and giving and giving, but you never reflect on that the person is only taking from you, and rarely are you given back. So when it comes to unconditional love, right, it's more about 2 people who can give each other. There's no taking there. Taking comes because you want to extract from the other person. So unconditional love, even though it may seem like an impossible thing now in this modern world, especially in 2025 now, where everything has become so easy that people just don't want to be with another person. But there's beauty in being with one person for a long time. And if you're with the right person, you won't even question any of these things. And those are very rare people who know what unconditional love is, who live by that. So people who have been affected by all these things stop believing in unconditional love. That's where the whole, even for narcissists, I'm saying, if you're a narcissist listening to this and you don't even know that you're a narcissist, it's because you never questioned yourself. You never questioned and wanted to believe that love is something that you are capable of giving, that you are capable of receiving also. And this void comes in because we did not receive this kind of love in our childhood. So it becomes a need to take in adulthood, and it becomes so intense that people just keep taking. It's really sad to see, and yeah, I have been through such experiences myself, so I know in my own life that these are very tough experiences to face in life. But maybe these are the pain that we need to go through to come out on the other side, to see that there's so much to life than just that. And when we go through these experiences, the very reason of how we end up attracting such people is because of the way that we are ourselves within us. If you can remember the first time that you end up liking a person, the first instances, even now, if it's happening, the initial times that where you end up liking a person, right, it's based on fulfilling your needs first. It's not because of how the other person is. It's not how the other person looks. It's not how they impress you. It's nothing related to those stuff. It may look like that externally, but if you look at it deeply, right, it's more about your needs are getting fulfilled when you look at that person. It could be anything. It could be a physical attraction, it could be a sexual attraction, it could be an emotional attraction, it could be a monetary attraction too. It could be any of the factors. But basically what is happening is you are seeing something that you lack in the other person, hoping that they would fulfill that for you. And that's never going to happen because the lack is in you. And this is where majority of the people, no matter what sex, are looking at their partners for fulfilling their needs. Of course, there are certain needs that can be only fulfilled by our partners, but most of the needs can be fulfilled by ourselves. And the needs that I'm talking about, it's something that has lacked in our childhood upbringing. So these void that we feel, that these needs, that we need a partner to complete us, it's never gonna happen. Even though a couple may live their whole life thinking that I have found the perfect partner, and if it is based on the other person is fulfilling my needs, it cannot be a conscious relationship. It may go on very nicely. It may even go on without a lot of problems, but there would not be any depth to it. It would be conditional love because you're expecting the other person to fulfill you. So when the other person is not there, you feel very empty. That's never a good thing. Ideally, and this is not to say that it's the way to be, or this is or it is the way to be for a perfect relationship. But ideally, two people who are complete themselves, when they come together and when they have individually grown and they come together, that's the only time that love can be shared between them. It's never about fulfilling each other. It's about coming together and sharing that love that you yourself have. And that's what an actual relationship is all about. Supposed to be come together and share that kind of deep love. If we take a reverse look at it, if we just keep going back, for two people to be like that, first they would have to have healed themselves, or at least be on the healing journey. because healing is never complete. I keep repeating this, but healing is something that's always an ongoing process. But when a person knows that they have things to heal from, that's when it's very true. It may take time, it definitely takes time for healing. So, if we keep going back and back and back, right, the qualities that these two people are supposed to have is sensitivity mainly. If a person is sensitive, not in a way where people are being put down now that you are sensitive, not in that way. Sensitivity as in you're sensitive to life itself, that you can feel things, that you can perceive things that other people barely do. Being sensitive to things is not a bad thing. Being sensitive is actually a great quality that is very rare now. Being sensitive, having empathy, being kind, these are the soft qualities that is supposed to be there in a partner. It is supposed to be there in you first. And it's there in all human beings, trust me. But the intensity is, there's such a huge gap in intensity for these things because of all the experiences that people have gone through in childhood. Many people have had to take responsibilities very early on, and it really affects these qualities because they go down because they were never allowed to have those. And these qualities are essential. They're really quintessential to having a conscious relationship. If you're not sensitive, that's the only time you would hurt other people. And if you have been hurt by other people, it's because they have not been sensitive to you. And that's all violence is about. Violence happens because a person or a group of people have lost sensitivity. These are very basic, deep, fundamental problems in human world today. And Krishnamurti talks a great deal about these things. He has only talked about these things because these are the very basic aspects of life. And people are so far away from understanding the mind. And that's why he spent decades talking only about these basic qualities of a human being. That's why it's very essential to look at things deeply and not just live superficially. And there have been a great number of people who have tried to bring this back into people. But majority of the people don't have any exposure to these kind of information. Because if you look at the schools, the colleges, the universities, even the workplaces, rarely is it talked about of living consciously. It is not just in spirituality that this applies to, but spirituality has to have a tremendous place in that, a major place in that for a person to live consciously. But even if it's not there, if people can just intellectually understand all these things, right, it's going to solve a lot of problems. Majority of them, if only they could be sensitive to their partners, to their parents, to animals, to life. And people kill because they have really lost sensitivity. How else would you harm a person if it is only possible if you are insensitive to life. Sometimes I feel bad even to kill an ant. You need to be that kind of sensitive, where even if you kill a mosquito you feel bad. You need to do all this stuff because if you're going to protect your own body. But on a bigger picture, if you have these kind of qualities of sensitivity, of calmness, of stillness, of awareness, of having empathy, of being kind, these are the things that will take you very far as a person. And these are really not promoted these days. They're really not talked about a lot. Most of the things that are talked about is for profits, and these things don't bring profits, and these things only exist in the area of mental health, where if a person can't even afford a therapy session, for example, who is he going to go to? And these are very important questions to ask. And so when these basic fundamental qualities are missing in a partner, that's when you end up having a very toxic relationship. And especially because I've been mentioning about narcissists, it tends to become really toxic if two people who are unconscious and come together. That's why you have n number of millions of examples throughout the world where relationships go from great to bad to worse, and it could even be worse at the start itself. It's really sad to see all this, and people don't even grow after a lot of bad experiences, because what happens is when you have a lot of bad experiences in relationships, be it parents, with partners, you tend to cocoon yourself, you tend to go to depression, because these are the kind of things you have faced in your life and you don't have any other way to look at life. And if a person does not take things on a good note, does not grow out of chaos, does not have that quality of looking at the good side of things even in bad times, that takes a person in a very dark place, and that's when suicide happens, because a person keeps repeating those memories. The mind is exactly at the core of all this. That's why when I decided to do all these courses and write the book, it's really about the mind. Spirituality has very less aspect in it, because if you understand the mind, right, and you go deep into it, that's it. And you need to do this the right way, because there are various resources which will just keep you very superficial. Various people who will just talk about coping mechanisms, about just fixing problems temporarily. And it works. You will feel great because those problems don't exist after a few days. You may take some drugs, some medicines, and you will feel awesome about it. But that does not solve the problem at the root level. The root cause of all this is time, psychological time. And love, when I am talking about unconditional love, where a person does not even expect anything from the other person, that only comes in when a person has realized that love is not something of the mind. Whatever comes out of the mind, it comes from the past, and you can't be loving by being in the past here. This is a very deep thing to realize, because when you are with the past in the present, you are always, even though you may say you love, even though you may feel you love, you are looking at the other person and loving through those memories which is of the past. Those are the images that you have built up about the person. That's really conditional love. I am completely for unconditional love, because that's the way I lived, and I've seen an example in my mother and father about having that, and it's completely possible. And each person can only talk from their experiences, and I talk from mine, and I completely know that I have been a giver to a point where I was overdoing it, and that's where the thing about having boundaries comes into picture. But if you see boundaries, you need boundaries only with a person whom you need to have boundaries with. If you really find a partner who just knows, right, you really don't need a boundary with that person. And there's a lot of talk about having boundaries. Yes, you do need boundaries with certain kind of people, because then they would tend to keep um, crossing boundaries and taking advantage of you. So, but if it's the right person, and I'm not saying right person is a myth. No, it's not a myth. The right person is someone who first matches with your values, and you just know that this is the right person, not just because you love that person because of such and such things, but because you see that you can be with this person and you can be yourself. And this could be true at various levels, and this can be true at a very superficial level also, and that's completely alright. But if you can do that in depth, that takes life to a whole different level, whole different depth, and it's something that would do a world of good to the world also. In any relationship, there are going to be differences, there are going to be fights, there are going to be conflicts, there are going to be arguments. This is something that can't be avoided. No matter what you do, you can't avoid them. And when these conflicts are handled in a very better, in a much balanced way, right, they can really bring about a huge change in how the relationship progresses, in how the relationship is, and to your state of mind also. So it's in the handling of these problems that that a relationship is really hinged on. It stands on this, the future of it. But if it is not handled well here, that's not going to have a good future for it. Two people can live together horribly, not knowing how to resolve conflicts, and that can become a norm too. And I've seen that in people where they don't know, where it could be one person dominating the other person, it could be the vice versa also, and it could be both of them just get used to the way of arguments, drama, the whole anger, the whole chaos of it. They might get used to it because they think they have no other option, but there are options as in not to change the person, not to leave the person. But if you really want to be with that person, then there are ways to handle conflicts in a much better way. I can recommend John Gottman. John Gottman is a brilliant person when it comes to handling, when it comes to learning how to handle conflicts in relationships. He has done decades of work on couples, and he has seen what works and what doesn't work. His books are brilliant too. So when you are handling conflicts, and the conflicts really happen because there are triggers in each of us, that one person may like something, the other person may not like that. One person may have a certain limit to something, other person may feel they don't have any limit for that. The beliefs are the strongest. So one person may believe in something that clashes with the other person's beliefs, and these are really at the core of conflicts, the differences. There are definitely John talks about how to handle them when the conflicts happen, but I want to start at the root level, where why does the conflict happen in the first place? Why does it have to go so bad, so rough, of hours of fighting? Why does it even have to go to that level? Let's see the root of the problem of conflicts. So, if you have been in relationships, you would know that if if you go slowly into what has happened, and even now going forward when fights happen, right, if you are aware at that instant, that particular instant, you just know that there's going to be a problem. And when you're used to having had so many conflicts, you can just have a feeling about it that this does not go well with the other person. When that happens, it's either your trigger or it's the other person's trigger, or it's you being over cautious, or because the other person does not like it, you will completely even stop avoiding and do those things that the other person does not like. But it becomes more of a compromise, and if you really like to do something, you should do it. And if the other person is not ready to accept the fact that you like doing something that they may not like, that means they don't want to grow in and see why they don't like it. Of course, there are certain things that relationship is based on, and that is where the whole concept of values comes into picture, where if your values match, if you both are on the same page about things, and still there are things that you guys don't like about each other, some things are really fixable. But even John Gottman mentions that 69% of the problems are never going to be solved, because these are very superficial problems, and you can't change the nature of a person. You can change different things. For example, you may like you can get adjusted, you can be open to these small changes, for example about food, and for example about day-to-day activities. But the fundamental nature of a person can't be changed. That they have to do themselves. And when he mentions about 69% of the problems are not going to go anywhere, and you're going to keep talking and arguing about them, he is mentioning about the nature of the person. And I'm all in to say that even the nature of a person can be changed, because I've done that myself. I used to be very insecure in relationships initially, because I was not even aware I was insecure. And over time I realized control is not something that you can ever have. And the sense of control is in everybody. If you look at yourself, you want to control things. If you look at yourself, you want to control your partner. You want to control situations. But these sense of being in control, this urge of being in control, is coming from a place of trauma, because they might have been instances, and I'm not an expert in trauma, but I have worked a lot of myself. I can tell by assurance that control comes from childhood traumas. The lack of control in a lot of situations in childhood has made you want to be in control over a lot of things in your adulthood. This applies to both male and female. It doesn't matter. And control is something that we all want to be in, because we want to feel in control about life, and there's a healthy level to that. But when you seek control of the other person, that's where it's toxic. I have done that too. That's how I know it. And that happens because you are in trauma and don't even realize you are controlling the other person. And you control the other person because you want to own them. You want to own them because you want them to be only yours. You want that because you were not anybody's in your childhood. You felt that way. This may be true, this may not be true for a lot of people, but essentially it is about a lack of needs being fulfilled in childhood. There are a lot of factors that are not fulfilled in childhood. There are a lot of traumas that happen in childhood. that comes up in a relationship in adulthood. That's why it all becomes conditional, because the conditions are: you listen to me and I will listen to you. You do this and I will do that to you. You pay for this and I will pay for that. Where is love in this? That's why it's so rare now to find a couple who really love each other. And if you really want to have that kind of depth in a relationship, and if you have not had that before, it's really time for you to work on yourself, to go deep. Give it some years. The world is not going to end. And the people that will start coming into your life after you start working on yourself, and it happened to me, the people that you tend to attract after you have worked on yourself, the inner work to heal yourself from childhood traumas, to recognize those traumas, to recognize your patterns, to work on those patterns, to see that some of the patterns are really, really strong, and some of them will take years and decades to go away. But just to have that recognition is very important, because when you recognize those and that you have that problem, it's only then you can see that when those problems occur, and you slow down to see, and you can really identify what your triggers are, where you are getting triggered, why you are getting triggered. The why is very important, because when trigger happens, it's sort of coming from the past, always coming from the past. But when you ask why, and I have done a lot of whys since 2018, when you ask whys, that's when you start questioning everything in life, about your life, about how you function, about how your mind functions. The why is where the answer lies. It's not in the how. How anybody can answer how to do this, how to do that, but why is it's a very serious question. And when you keep asking why and why and why, for example, why did I get angry with this person? Why is this person angry with me? What made me get angry with this? What did he say that made me angry? Why did it make me angry? For some reason, and I was introduced to the why when I was doing a design thinking course back in 2018. So the whole idea of asking why really takes you to this habit of questioning, and it could be any question, but that needs to be a question that will keep making you go deeper into the aspect that you're looking at. An example I can give you of myself is, when there's a relationship breakup, before I got into spirituality in 2018, I used to ask, before this person introduced me to the concept of why, asking why, I used to be very troubled about what made the person leave me, and what it was all about. How could they even leave me? And it was all about, I did so much for them, but I did not get anything in return. And all these really simple, and not simple, but very crucial questions that a person goes through after a breakup. And I'm sure a lot of you have gone through a breakup. When you are in that phase, right, you want the other person back. You want the other person back because you don't just miss having them around, but what you miss them is a part of you, because you made them a part of yourself here in your memories. And when there's a void, when that is taken away from you, there's a pain, because it's pulled from you. It's as if, because they were part of you made them completely a part of yourself, not just a bit of it, completely a part of yourself. And when that kind of boundary is crossed by another person, and this can be a beautiful experience as well if it's done consciously, but Most of the people do not do it consciously, and it becomes a very painful process to process breakup. And I was there. I could not process it. And one of the places that helped me was the design thinking course, where when I was introduced to the why, right, I was at a place where I used to think I can never love again. And I'm sure it happens to a lot of people, where they would think that this is the only person they can love. And they would do anything for that person to come back. I've seen men crying, I've seen women crying. It's something very deeper than the superficial emotions. Emotions are there. They are not. It's not like the emotions are not true. They are true, but they are based on memories. So when you want the other person back, and when you're wanting to sacrifice so much of yourself to get them back, to an extent where you're sacrificing everything for them, sacrificing so much that you wouldn't even fall in love again. And I have done that. I did that for a lot of years because I thought this was the person for me. And if there was ever going to be a person who I would really love, it would be just this person who will come back to in my life later on. That was more of a big learning for me. And I think it's a phase that people go. It depends on a lot of factors, to be honest, a lot of psychological aspects, where you either process it in a very short time, but to a lot of people it takes time. I think this applies to people who are sensitive, and I'm saying this because I've gone through those experiences where I really thought I would only love this person. But what really happened was, when I met this person after 7 years, I did fall in love with that person again. It was a very temporary thing, but it is more to do so with not having the closure with the person. Because when something just ended abruptly, right, and there was no closure, what would really happen is you have that space where it's not completely ended for you. For you, it may be ended. For that person completely, they would have moved on, they would be married, they would have kids, but for you it's not completed, it's not closed completely. That's when there's that gap, that opening, where when that other person comes back into your life, you're like, I would do anything for that person again, and the same story continues. And that happened with me. And it slowly hit me that this was happening to me because there was no closure at that time from my end. Even though I did have a closure in a way, in a sort of a way, and I thought I was over that person. Over the years, I did have that kind of feelings for that person, even though that person was not there. But then if you look at the depth of it, right, the beauty of it is that kind of love existed in me because I was capable of it. And if you are capable of something like that, that means it's in you. It's never the other person. That's when it hit me that it's always been about me. It's always been about me loving a person unconditionally. It didn't even matter that the other person is there or not. That's when I realized the physicality of a person does not even matter for love. That's when it is completely unconditional. And it was not just about the person. It's also more about how you love, the meaning that you give, the depth that you have about love. And I don't know if it's ever going to happen to you, and I really wish it happens to you. But you need to go through that journey, and I wish it just happened overnight, but it's not something that happens so instantly. And a lot of people come with these qualities. I'm really blessed to have those. where I can be sensitive. And I've rarely seen such qualities in other people, especially in men. Women tend to be more sensitive about things, and I have met a lot of people a lot of men who are sensitive enough, but the sensitivity is more on towards the feminine side. And this brings to a point where being sensitive is not just a quality of the feminine. Sensitivity is part of both, and you have both feminine and masculine qualities. If you go into the depths of it, if you see the examples of when women started working, before that they didn't have this masculine ability to work. It was all men. But women are working now. Where do you think that comes from? Because they already had that qualities within them, but it was underexpressed. Same with men now. A lot of men don't feel. I was one of them. It took me a lot of work on my trauma, through spirituality, through psychology, through therapy, through my own inner work, that made me feel my emotions, come back to them. And when I applied all this, the spirituality and the psychology aspects of that, I really could see that a lot of men are not sensitive enough to feel their feelings. I could see that in them because I have seen that in myself. And the existence of both feminine and masculine qualities in both male and female is something it's very deep. If you have read about Carl Jung, if you are into spirituality, we talk about the energies. All these are very much true. And we need to have this kind of sensitivity to realize that this is true. That I as a male, you as a female, have both of them. That's when you can become aware to be sensitive. And when you're sensitive, when you go through this kind of journey, when you overcome all these challenges, then it's going to take a lot of efforts as in the sense of observation. And I hope you come to a point where the observation becomes very automated. It becomes by default in you. And it's only through these kind of works that a person can come back to being sensitive. And only through sensitivity can a person love another person unconditionally. And only through sensitivity can a person see what kind of a partner they really want and move towards that. It doesn't matter what age you get that person. It's all about having that space to share it with another person, to share this beautiful life together with another person. You may be wanting to live on your own. That's completely alright. But when this life is so immense and you live by your own experiences, by default you have only that. But when you share it with the person who's conscious too, and you get to see another perspective. So when there's a mirror, right, and the other person just gives you a perspective that is not yours. And when you have that intimate relationship with another person, where there is unconditional love, where there is constant growth, it becomes phenomenal. I wish you get such a relationship, to get into such a relationship, that you work on yourself so much that you end up attracting such a person, and that you get to live this life together with the person consciously, because that's all this life is all about. It's about sharing, and when you do that with the person, it becomes even more beautiful. And when you can do that with the person, you end up expanding yourself to help other people too, because after a while that you want to give more and more and more, and it just doesn't stop with the partner. It expands to the society, it expands to the whole world, and it makes you grow as a person, It makes you expand your own your own skill sets, makes you question a lot of things, and that's why healing is always a constant process. Growing is always a constant process, because you end up growing, and there's always growth, there's always learning about yourself. And when you want to expand it beyond your partner also, because just with the partner there's a ongoing daily learning about yourself, about the other person. But when you reach a stage where you have completely mastered that art of living with the person, then you tend to expand, and then you can expand your skill sets, your qualities of things, your own goals, your own dreams, and along with your partner, this becomes a very beautiful life. I hope you get to live that.